Civility in politics can be tricky, especially when you lead state government. On today's episode, listen to former Governor Rell interview current Governor Lamont to discuss, governor to governor, how they handled incivility in politics. My name is Catherine Owens, and I'm the director of the Governor M. Jodi Rell Center for Public Service at the University of Hartford. The center focuses on ethics in government, the importance of civil discourse in politics, and citizen involvement in public service and government. This is our podcast.
So what we are talking about today, of course, is the Rell Center has been known for its emphasis on civility. And I wanted to ask you, in this day and age where everything seems to be so negative and people are always kind of yelling at each other and nasty comments are being made, how do you deal with being civil to someone who you really would just like to turn around and say, stop already, shush up? How do you stay civil?
Well, Jodi, it's really great to see you. Thank you for doing this. And I'd like to say I'm trying my best to follow in your footsteps. You as governor maintained a level of civility, working with folks on both sides of the aisle, the likes of which we didn't see in Connecticut for a long time. And certainly we don't see it in Washington, D.C. right now. And, I come out of the business world, and one day I'm competing with you, the next day you're my partner. So that's sort of the mentality I brought to this job. And, I came in the office, the first thing I found was, we were in a big lawsuit with the hospitals. So we weren't talking to each other. And believe it or not, it was all about taxes. Who would have thought that it was about taxes? And I just figured that doesn't do either of us any good. Let's change the tone. Let's sit down and see if we can find some common ground so that the state and our hospital system are working as one. And, 6 months later when COVID hit, that was really helpful. Sometimes a change of tone is just what you need to move the ball forward.
That's great. And I hear you. It's that sharing sometimes that makes all the difference in the world. If you can sit down at the table, I know one of the things we always did when I was in office was, we had a Wednesday morning leadership meeting. It's very hard to leave a meeting that you've just had coffee and Danish with the governor and then go out and badmouth that person because you're not happy with their decisions. But let me ask you, if you can think of an occasion, even recently or early on in your office, of where you really felt like, I don't want this person in my office. I don't want to even have them come in here. I don't think I can be civil to this person. I'll have to meet with them at a later date. Is there anything that has happened like that to you? You can be honest. No. You don't have to give me names.
No, in the sense that you always leave the door open and you always hope that you can turn things around. And even if you got off on the wrong foot at the beginning, you keep trying. But the yes part of that for me, Jodi, is can I talk to you in confidence? And I learned pretty fast, my first year, I talked to a lot of people. I'm the type of guy that picks up the phone. I say, please come into the office. I want to hear what you have to say. And I learned this is a conversation I had in confidence with somebody I'm trying to work things out, or this is somebody who used that conversation to go right to the Hartford Courant and score points. So from that point of view, I learned to be careful.
That's an excellent point. I know one of the things I always focused on, one was if I'm talking to you, I want to meet you face to face and I want you to look me in the eye. And if there is any question about this being off the record, or if you want to go to a newspaper, tell me now, because I want to be able to trust you. And if I can't, then this meeting is over and it may not ever happen again. And I think people need to know that from the very beginning. A quick question to you as well. What do you think? It's been a difficult year for you. It's been a difficult time for everybody across the country. A lot of the governors around the country are obviously dealing with COVID. And in many cases, I think many of them believe that it has defined their political life. How do you think your political life has been defined this last year? That's a aim at you question, and I'm sorry, but it's.
Here's what I think. I'm down there in Fairfield County. Nobody knows what the heck state government does. They tax me and doesn't all that money go to pensions. I'm sort of aggravated about that, right? That was sort of a mentality, I hear quite a bit. And I think over this last couple of years, Jodi, at a minimum, people have a new appreciation of what your state government does. I mean, what the Department of Public Health and Social Services and how we had to work with corrections and how we had to work with folks with special needs when you're confronted with a COVID crisis. And I'd like to think that governors on both sides of the aisle worked pretty well over the last couple of years. We certainly worked together well. We didn't always get, partnership coming out of Washington, D.C., to put it lightly. So we had to speak on our own 2 feet. And when we could speak together, it was a lot more effective. And so I'd like to think that people have a new appreciation that sometimes state government can make a difference in the right direction.
I agree with you. Thinking of that and thinking of state government and thinking of governors, this is an election year. And, how does that play into, I keep harping on civility. The word civility comes out because I'm so used to saying it, and then all of a sudden I can't say it. But at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, this is an election year. This is going to be that time when the people that you have to deal with day in and day out at the legislature, you're trying to get bills passed, you're trying to get your agenda across, and yet they're going to be out there on television beating up on you. Some directly, sometimes not so subtle. How do you think you're going to deal with that? And how does that affect your legislation, your agenda? What is it, what does it say that if you stand back and think, buddy, you just were out there talking to a news reporter saying what a lousy job I've done, and now I want to try to get this bill passed. Do I have your support? What do I need to do to be nice to you? Any problems there? Any issues there?
Well, I can tell you, Jodi, this year is going to be very different than the last year and a half. I mean, the last year and a half, let's face it, not only was it not an election year, the legislature was pretty well home just because of COVID. So we tended to work together pretty well. People delegated some authority to me so I could respond quickly when it came to securing masks and securing tests and the such. And it was a very collaborative, like we were all being invaded by an army. We had to work together to fight back. Obviously now it's an election year. Everybody's coming back to the building. So it's everything is through a political lens. And I'll be blunt, the longer I can put off all that campaign stuff, the more I can get people to focus on the task at hand, balance the budget, get the economy growing again, and deal with public health in a serious way, the better it is for the state.
That's true. Thinking of campaigns, though, I want to ask you, again, it is a campaign year. The legislature, in addition to yourself, will all be running for office this year. Do you believe that they're going to be in full time in the Capitol building, or are you foreseeing that maybe they're still going to come in two or 3 days a week, or go back to the old schedule whenever the session is being called?
Well, Jodi, you know this better than I do. I found out the governor is just a guest in the Capitol building, and I get invited to go into the main room. And so I don't have a call on that, except to say this. From my point of view, I'm asking teachers to get back into the classroom. I'm asking first responders and folks in corrections and essential workers around the state to show up in person and do it safely. So I do think that we should lead by example in the Capitol building as well. If it was me, I'd say, look, if you've been vaccinated or you tested negative, I want you in the building. I'll do a state of the state. Maybe a third of the people are in the room, not 100% for reasons we understand. But I think that's sort of the way I'd like to think we can go. We can get back to a normal course of business. Good.
I agree with you. And I think the legislators agree with you. They'd like to be in the Capitol building. The people's work should be done there. And I hope that we'd be able to get back to doing public hearings and the like, because the people really want to see their legislators and they want to see them up close and personal. And they want to be able to voice their opinion in a room where they feel comfortable. And I'd love to see him get back to public speaking and public discourse. But so while I've got you, I know I'm putting myself out there right now. Should probably be scared of this. Anything you want to ask me? Now
What do you wish you had done differently? Anything? You're looking back, whatever that is,
you know,
12 years.
I don't know that I would have done things differently. I would have liked to have had more time, but I think always meeting with when I say more time with legislators, more time to address legislation. I was one of those weird people, if you will. I like to read the bills. That was my background. But I think doing it early on with the legislators that were involved, those who wanted to get their bills passed and all, would have made a difference. I'm just sorry I didn't have enough time with individual legislators. That would have made a big difference in getting different things done. I don't have any regrets doing things differently. That would have been probably it. But anyway, anything else? Now's your chance, Governor.
I'll tell you one thing that struck me, Jodi. I mean, compared to my previous life when I was, building telecommunication systems, I pretty well knew at the end of 20 years what the issues were coming to my table every day. I had a lot of experience doing it. One of the things I love about Governor and is challenging about Governor is every day there's something coming in over the transom. I couldn't even spell COVID 2 years ago. And you need a frame of reference to help figure out how to filter and how to set priorities. And you need to know who to reach out to where you need some support. For me, when it came to epidemiology, I needed a lot of help.
I hear you. And you're right. Things change and you get every day something new comes to your office or comes to your attention. But, in spite of that, some things stay the same. I kind of chuckle sometimes to myself when I'm reading the headlines or reading a story in one of the state's newspapers, and it'll say, the legislature is taking up such and such and such and such. And I said, my gosh, they're still dealing with that. They were dealing with that 25 years ago, 35 years ago. Some things just never change and they keep coming back year after year after year. And I think that's one of the frustrations that the public feels is like, don't you guys ever finish the job up there? Speaking of finishing a job, what do you think is the best accomplishment that you've had so far as being governor?
I will say, to your previous comment, there were a lot of bills that have sat up here for 5, 10, 15 years. And I think it was time for us to make up our mind. You may not agree about how we did it, but at least we decided. We decided on phasing in a minimum wage. We decided on paid family and medical leave over a period of time. We decided after many years, this is what we're going to do on sports betting and iGaming and working with the tribes. After many years, this may be a little more controversial, marijuana, looking at what's going on with all of our neighboring states and how we play. So I think we took some longstanding issues and made a decision, pro or con, and didn't let them fester unanswered for a long period of time. But to be more exact, when I took over, the previous budget had taken, 4 or 5 extra months to get passed. It was in deficit. The ratings houses had downgraded us, and mayors and superintendents said, I can't plan. So coming as a business guy, it was a modest goal, I guess, but I said, I want an honestly balanced budget done on time. I can't promise you I'll eliminate all the taxes, but I can promise you it will be, balanced and it will be on time. And the first year, that was sort of contentious because we confronted a big deficit. We had to work through some things. The second biennial budget, I talk about civility, Jodi. I was really proud the Republicans, Democrats came together and supported the budget. That doesn't happen every day,
I do know. Trust me, I do know. There are so many things running through my mind right now, and I just want to try to ask you a few more questions. And I know, and I again appreciate your being on with us today. I know how busy your schedule must be. One thing that we always want to focus on is our youth. I know you're talking about keeping the schools open and making sure our kids are in school. What do we do as adults? You as a public official, me as a former governor, how do we get young people involved? What do we need to do to encourage them to be active in government, whether it's state government, whether it's running for office someday, whether it's the federal government, something that will entice them to say, hey, I can make a difference too. What do we do to encourage that?
I love that question. No, first of all, you're right. My overwhelming priority was to keep our kids in school as best I could. Nothing better than having a great teacher in a classroom, you with your peers. More broadly, we don't really teach civics the way we should. People don't really understand how government works. I've tried to create a program, Jodi, with internships and apprentices and ways to get young people involved. For the older group, those guys getting out of, business school or law school, they always get Potomac fever. They all want to go down to Washington. They want to hang out with, Obama or Trump, and that's more exciting than Hartford. But I tell people there's nothing more exciting as a young person being able to make an incredible difference at a young age. And that's what state government allows you to do. You're not going to be writing some policy paper that nobody reads. You're actually going to be implementing bills and laws and taking federal resources and making a difference where you can do it. So, and I think we've done pretty well at getting a new breed of cat involved in state government. I'd like to build on that.
I hear you. I think that's a great plan. And I think one of the things you can do and other people who are in public office is visit the schools. I know you're probably asked often, come into a classroom. And yes, it's hard to do with a busy schedule, but every once in a while, just to be there, let young people see you. My gosh, this is the governor of our state. Some of those little kids don't know what a governor does. And that makes a difference when you can be there and share with them. This is what I do. These are the things that I am responsible for. And hopefully they'll say, I could do something like that. Well, Governor, thank you so much for being with us today. I do appreciate your time. I know how busy you are, and all I can say is good luck this year. I think that COVID is going to continue to be your nemesis and that of all of us in the state, but I think you're doing a good job handling it, and I wish you all the very best. So hang in there and know that you have the support of a lot of people.
Well, Jodi, thank you. Right back at you. I hope I'm following your footsteps when it came to civility in this Capitol building, see if we can change the tone. You're right, COVID is my nemesis. You talk about going to schools. Just when I'm ready to go to school, Delta or Omicron happens and we have to pull back. I want to see people in person, look them in the eye and thank them for being really active citizens here in Connecticut. So happy to do this. Happy to see you again. Let's get together soon.
We'll do that. Thank you, Governor, for your time.
Thank you for joining us for the Rell Center podcast. Thanks also to Lon Seidman for tech support. Our theme music is from Tim Taj from Pixabay.